Good morning. Welcome to Viking Preparedness. I am Pastor Joe Fox. So most of y'all have a plan of some kind to deal with times of trouble, the end times, Tiawaki, SHTF, emergencies, and your plans vary greatly. Probably as many as people as there are of you watching this, that's how many plans there are. But most of you have stored up supplies and things like that of certain kinds for preparedness, whether that's 2 weeks to 2 years. The question in this video is, at the point you come to the end of those supplies, then what? All right, intro, a book recommendation. Pew. All right, so some of you all have, 2 weeks worth of food, water, supplies, medical stuff. Some of you have probably 2 years worth. An argument could be made that 2 weeks worth of everything you need is probably enough. If you look historically at the U.S., when was the last time anybody in the U.S. had to go longer than 2 weeks without goods and services flowing into that area? Right? And so that would be a good argument. Not one that I subscribe to, but it would be a good argument. Mormons, LDS, right? Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Last time I checked, which granted was a while ago, they were all supposed to have a year's supply of food and stuff, right? Stuff they would need, soap, diapers, whatever. But in my experience, many Mormons don't have that much, right? But they're supposed to. So some people have a year's supply. Some people have, 2 weeks supply. Most people are probably somewhere in the middle there. There's probably some people that have more. But at some point, given a situation where nothing more is coming in, there's no services, you eat that last bit of freeze-dried food, there's no more that you can order. You shoot that last bullet or you reload that last round, no more supplies coming in. At some point, the supplies, the stuff that you have accumulated will run out. What's your plan? What's your thought process after that? Most people don't have one. We say in, combatives training, and I'll have something at the end of this, a recommendation for y'all to check out a new channel if you're into combatives. But we say in combatives training that you default to the level of your training, right? Of your actual experience training, not, what you think, Mr. Ninja Guy, but what you've actually practiced and done. We default in our thinking, many of us, to the level of our preparations. I've got all this stuff, I'm ready for all these things, and that's what we focus on, what I'm ready for. We don't spend a whole lot of time focusing on what we're not ready for, or what happens if, God forbid, all my supplies go away in a tornado or a fire, or somebody steals them, or I get caught on the other side of the country because I happen to be there. I mean, we never think about those things, or we very rarely do. But for this video, I'm asking you to start considering what happens when your supplies run out. And see, there's the automatic psychological defenses that are coming up. Oh, Pastor Joe, I have X amount of supplies and nothing will ever last that long. If it lasts that long, I'll just die. That's the same argument people use with nuclear war because they just don't want to think about nuclear war, so they say it's unsurvivable and, so on. I got news for you. Nuclear war is very survivable. The elites and the governments know it, and they're preparing. You can too. You don't need $1 billion, but that's another video for another time that I've already done. What are you going to do when your stuff runs out? What are you going to do when your last bucket of rice and beans gets eaten? When your last battery-powered light goes out? When your solar system, the batteries for that die? I've got a great solar system, and actually most of you don't, so your light plan. I was thinking about this today because it's cold here now. It's, 14 degrees or something outside, and it's dark, right? It's wintertime. It's cloudy out there. And I was thinking, okay, lighting. Flashlights and batteries. I have some solar rechargeable batteries, really not enough. And I'm not sure what an EMP does to that whole system and my solar recharger and whatever, but assume they even last. I have oil lamps and wicks and oil. And I ask myself, which is what I'm asking you, what happens when those wicks and oil run out? Then what? We live in the dark. We eat grass. Actually ask yourself this, where you live. Because most of you, again, most of you are urbanites, right? I mean, most of America's urban, so most of you are living in cul-de-sacs and on nice tree-lined streets and, whatever, with lots of people around you and not a lot of land. All right, I get that. What's your plan to eat? What's your plan to poop? What's your plan for water when what you have runs out? I did a video recently about bushcrafting, and I said, bushcrafting is a good skill for people to have because if you can walk out into yon woods, fields, prairies, desert, beaches, mountains, wherever you are, and survive having very little on you, a knife, that puts you huge leaps ahead. It's still really difficult to eat at that point. I think a decent argument, and one when I bring it up a lot of people will default to because it's easy, is that if times are that bad, there's going to be a lot of dead people, which means there's going to be a lot of canned food laying around that people can, you can go scavenge, snag. Maybe, but what also happens in times like that, historically, you ever seen the movie Black Hawk Down? That was true. This food belongs to Muhammad Farah ID. Warlords come in and take all the food. They consolidate it because food is power, right? Or the government takes it, You want to eat? Sure, come on into our camp. Everything's provided for you. Get this, mark of the beast on you. That's all you got to do, and you can eat. God doesn't want your children to starve. So I think going after those canned goods and scavenging, I don't think that's a good plan. I really don't. If you look historically at hunter-gatherer cultures, it's a very hard life, very short life. Most of their day was spent looking for food. That's no kind of life. Not really. Learn to garden. Learn to raise animals. That's the biggest thing. Water falls from the sky in most places. If you live in Phoenix, you need to move. But water falls from the sky. This time of year, in much of our nation, the water that falls from the sky is not in a form that you can drink. And so you're going to need some form of heat to heat it up. What's your plan for that? If you live in the prairies, what are you going to burn? To heat up your water. A lot of people talk about freezing to death. If the power goes out, the utilities go out and things like that. Newsflash, you're not going to freeze to death in a house. Assuming you're dry and out of the wind, you're not going to freeze to death. Just put on more clothes. Put the whole family in one bed. You won't freeze to death as long as you have food. Food is going to be an issue, but you will need to heat up snow and ice if you want to melt that to drink. Have you done that? Have you practiced that? Have you seen, that's another thing. Those of you who've never done this, who are looking outside your window right now at snow all over the ground, thinking, yeah, I'll just melt snow. I challenge you, for the next 5 days, don't use your tap. Only use snow that you melt. It'll be a huge learning experience. So think about that. Start thinking about your long-term plan. At least get some things lined up. You can garden anywhere. You could garden in an apartment in the Bronx if you wanted to. Now, you can't grow a huge garden that you're probably going to be able to live on forever, but you could grow some calories, right? And you could start learning some things that could help you in the future. You can raise animals in a lot of really interesting places. People used to raise pigeons all the time. One of my goals last summer was to learn how to raise pigeons and start raising pigeons for food. Rock dove. Didn't get around to that this year, but it's still on the list. People in cities used to raise pigeons for food all the time. I think some still do. So there's a thing. Rabbits, for those of you who eat unclean, which I don't recommend you do, but I know a lot of you all do anyway. They're easy to raise. But what are you going to feed them when there's no more pellets? Things like that. Start thinking the long thoughts, and because we're consumers, right? Americans, capitalist consumers, we like to buy our way out of problems. Instead of going out and actually rolling around in the dirt and charging and doing individual movement techniques with your rifle. It's kind of like flag drills in football with our rifle, charging, hiding, rolling, ducking, getting up, jumping up and down, It's exhausting, and shooting and hitting targets. Instead of doing that, we like to buy another gizmo for our rifle, right? I mean, it's what we do as Americans. We like to buy more food. We like to buy the newest, water filter or whatever. It's better just to get out there and do things, and at some point you're going to have to do that. And so let me give you some hope. 1800s, 1700s, U.S. There was no electricity. There wasn't much industry to speak of, cottage industry type stuff going on. People lived, that they carried on. They had happy lives. They had to do a lot of things for themselves. Growing gardens. They go to bed early. They had tallow candles, that kind of were really smoky. Have you ever made a tallow candle? I have. Things like that. But start doing it. Don't just say, yeah, well, I could make candles out of this. Then go make some candles and see how that works for you. Because the reason I tell you that is not challenging you because you won't be able to do it. It's because when you do it, when you do these things that you say you're going to do, like I said, go live off of snow for the next 5 days, you are going to learn so much, and you will tweak some things. Maybe you'll go buy a heavy bottom pot and a tripod, right? Maybe you'll go figure out how you're going to source firewood, things like that. But start asking yourself that horrible question, what happens when the stuff I have runs out? What then? All right, I'll see you out there. I forgot. Hey, for those of you who are into combatives, and really everybody should be into combatives, I know that sounds crazy, right? I'm a 60-year-old woman with a bad hip. You should know combatives. You should know how to handle a firearm, handle yourself to the extent that you can. Use the weapons that are available to you. Everybody should know combatives. It should just be something you start teaching your children. But for those of you who are into combatives, I found a new channel. It's brand new. I don't think there's maybe 20-some videos up there. I emailed back and forth with the guy. I don't know him. We don't have a deal of any kind. I just saw the guy, and I think if you like me, and you like combatives, I think you'll like him. He's a straight shooter, no BS, straight to the point. He knows what of he speaks. I can tell that he does. And he's got some videos right now up on jiu-jitsu type stuff, handgun type stuff, some really good, which is what hooked me on him, thought processes on training and personal assessment and things like that, because I'm all about always getting better, and you can't get better if you don't know where your weaknesses are to improve them, right? And see, that's a word I use that has power. Weaknesses. I should probably change that word. He uses better words than I do, too. The name of the channel is Redbeard Combatives. I'll put the link in the description to this video. If you're into combatives, go check him out. You could be in on the beginning of something new, because like very few subscribers, very few videos right now, but I foresee good things for this man. All right, Redbeard Combatives. Give him a check out, and I will see you out there.